So I want to start here with an example of a purpose-driven story. This is an example of a down, up structure. We start in the dumps, we go up, we go back to the dumps, we have our climax, and it's over. Now, not everything about this story is perfect, but I want to run you through the things that are good and some of the things that I would change so you can start to incorporate them into your own stories. To begin with, pay attention to what Tony uses for the hook right here at the beginning.
The most seminal moment for me was I had, $21, $22.
You have it right there. The most seminal moment. Okay, this is important. Let's continue.
Whatever it was, to my name. I'm living in a 400 square foot bachelor apartment. I'm feeling sorry for myself. I'm watching Luke and Laura on General Hospital. I mean, I was a mess. I was a total mess.
All right, so what we have done here is that he has set up the down. We have our sad background, and we have that moment of levity too, just to keep things a little bit light. Luke and Laura, you can work these funny moments into the sad things, not the most sad parts, but it actually does help to maintain people's attention if there are moments of slight jokiness as you set up maybe a sad background for your purpose-driven story. Let's continue.
And I realized I've not paid my rent, and I'm out of money, and I don't have any prospects for some new cash in the short term. How am I even going to eat?
So right here, this is within 30 seconds of starting, we have our question. This is what perplexes us, right? How is he going to eat? How is he going to make it through this period of his life where he has no money? Now, if you're talking to someone just without an interview going on, you might need to move this forward in the story. He's 30 seconds in, that works in an interview because he has all of our attention. But when you're talking to someone, all of this is going to get compressed unless you have really earned their attention. This story is about 4.5 minutes. You're probably going to be telling this in a minute or less, just because whether you're in a group or meeting someone for the first time, you need to keep everything sharp. So this is kind of an expanded version of what you ought to be doing.
I decided to go to this all-you-can-eat salad bar that they had around the corner of this place called El Torito. It's still there in Marina del Rey. And I lived in Venice. So it was about a 3-mile walk. I didn't take the car because I couldn't pay for parking, for the gas.
Okay, so pay attention. Why this detail? And he selected it purposefully, and he does it because it is building up this impoverished state at the beginning. This is very important when you have these sort of purpose-driven stories where you're trying to communicate something, and there's this shift from good to bad or bad to good. You need to include some details that might seem extraneous if A, they are fun and funny, or B, they support that structure. And in this case, they absolutely do, because he's saying, I'm so poor, I had to walk 3 miles to go to a buffet, right? That's how poor I was. I couldn't even take a bus.
And I walked there and I went in and I had this meal where I basically loaded up for the winter. I ate plates of food, just tacos and salads and everything else. And while I was sitting there, there was this little boy that came in. He opened the door and he was wearing this little vest, this little suit. And he, probably 9 years old, something like that, 8, 9, 10.
So this is interesting. Right here we have the introduction of another character, which does raise a question. There's this little boy wearing a suit in an all-you-can-eat buffet. What I would have done differently, or I not necessarily would have done, but would have advised Tony to do differently if he were trying to tell the best story in the world, is to build this, create a question here. And he could have done that by saying something like, the most interesting and completely random thing happened that could ever happen in an all-you-can-eat buffet. I look at the door, and in walks this little boy in a full suit, 3-piece attire with a tie, right? He could have built that up to just hook you a little bit more. Remember, when you're telling a story, you need to earn people's attention, and mysteries, questions do that extremely well.
And he held the door open, and in walks behind him this beautiful woman who was clearly his mother. And so, I definitely took it in. And then he sat down, he pulled out the chair for her, and he was just so attentive to his mother. He was just so with her that honestly, I was moved. And so I finished my meal, and then I got up and I paid the bill, and it was like $6 in those days, for all you could eat salad bar, whatever it was. And so I had whatever's left, $17, $18, $19. And I walked over to this little boy before I left. And I said, hi, and I introduced myself.
Notice here, we go from having everything be summary to now we're live. We are live in the dialogue, and you need to do this at some point in your stories. I think this is a wise choice for Tony. The moments of high stakes, high hilarity, high something, slow it down and actually do the dialogue as the character. He does it a little bit here, you'll see.
So if I said, I'm Tony, and he told me his name was Paul or whatever it was, I don't remember his name, this little boy, I said, Paul?
That's summary. He could have actually built it out and made it funny by going, I'm Paul, or something like that, but he went to summary. That's totally fine.
I said, you are a class act. I said, I saw I held the door open for your woman. I saw how you pulled up the chair for her. I said, taking her out to lunch like that, that is really cool. And he goes, well, she's my mom. Right. And I said, that's even more cool. And I said, take her to lunch.
So she's my mom. That was done in character. That's a moment for a laugh.
She goes, well, I didn't take her to lunch. She goes, you know, what, I think he said he was 8 or 9. He said, I'm 9 years old. I don't have a job yet. You know? And I said, yes, you are taking her to lunch. And I reached in my pocket and I took all the money I had left, whatever it was, $17, $18, $19, and I dropped it in front of him. I had no plan to do this. It wasn't like manufactured. I wasn't trying to impress this woman. And he looked up at me like shocked and he goes, I can't take that. And I said, sure you can. He said, how come? I said, because I'm bigger than you are, right? And he laughed like crazy and I didn't even say another word. I just walked out the door.
So this is the turn, right? We've gone down and now we're up. You're going to see Tony is floating. He's laughing. This little boy is laughing. We have our first down up.
Didn't even look at his mom.
You didn't get her number, huh?
No, I didn't get her number. And I got to tell you, it was the most powerful experience of my life because I didn't walk home. I kind of flew home. And I should have been like, what is the matter with you? You have no money for food. You get the last little pennies you have left. But I had no fear. I had no scarcity.
So we're entering into a part, we've got our up and he's still continuing, but watch, I think there's an opportunity here for him to really highlight another down before the final resolution. So just sort of pay attention how this bit flounders just a little.
And I got home and I realized what I'd done. It was like, I have no money now. I have like no money, nothing, right? I was trying to conserve by going there, you know?
So all of this could have been hyped a little bit more, right? We could have had a scene of him sitting at home going, oh my God, I had $19 to pay my bills. I have literally none. My rent is coming up in 3 days. And I feel, you know, as good as it felt, there's a bit of concern about that. Like like we can get that desperation, that down. And I think it would have made the climax, which is coming, that much more powerful. Remember, part of what drives these purpose-driven stories in any story is a movement, is a shift. And the more we can go from down in the dumps to up in the skies or reverse, that is what really captivates people.
And I don't know. I just I've worked on a plan. I figured I'll figure this out. And the next day I got the old snail mail and came in around like noon. And I pull out this letter and there's a young man that I had loaned $1,200 to. And he had not paid me back. And I was desperate for cash. I probably called him 10 times trying to track him down. Not a single response. And I was so hurt and pissed. And here's the letter from this guy saying, I'm really sorry.
We can feel it. He leans in. You know it. This is the climax. This is the punchline.
I know you've been trying to reach me. Wow. I've been avoiding you. And here's the money you owe. And I'm going to give you some interest as well. So I got, at that point, that was like more money than anything. And so once again, I'm sitting there, tears going down my face. I'm an emotional character. And I just thought to myself, you know,
here it is. We can feel it. I thought to myself, the moral is coming. This is what happens with these purpose-driven stories. We get an illustration of the point. We have this emotional movement, maybe some moments of levity, but this is really what it's about. He has a lot of time. He's in an interview. This goes on longer, but I'm going to let him spell it out for you. Again, if you're doing this in your own life, all of these bits will go a bit faster. This part especially, because it takes him about a minute to get through his moral here.
Why did this happen? And I chose to believe, I don't know if it's true, but I chose to believe that it's because I let go of trying to just take care of myself. I did what was right. I didn't plan it. I did it spontaneously. I saw it. It felt right to me. I did it. And I felt no scarcity. And I can tell you, I've had plenty of tough times. You know, I have 18 companies and 12 I manage actively. I got 1,200 employees on multiple continents. We do 5.
So you see, he's really spelling it out. I'm going to let it go 20 more seconds just so you can get the full value of this moral here.
Billion a year in sales across different industries now. I mean, it's a different world for me now. But since that, and I've been near bankruptcy multiple times in companies and things like that. I pulled it off, always, never went bankrupt. But I faced really tough times. I never went back to that level of scarcity, not since that day. So it's a long way of saying, when you have nothing is when you need to give.
And there you go. Now, Tony is an excellent example because when he tells a story in an interview, you know that story has been culled from hundreds that he thinks makes this point and is most effective for getting people to take action. And if he were to do the structure of his story, he would start with what like he said, he was thinking of what he wanted people to get from this. He would start from, how do I convince people that even when you don't have a lot, you still ought to give. And then he went through his life and found examples that suited that. And he played up the pieces that most worked in service of that end. And that's what you're going to do when you have your purpose-driven stories. When you're trying to illustrate why you deserve a job at a particular company and you want to show that you have this doggedness and you're going to find the way to solve a problem, you start with that end in mind, you go through examples, and then you have the emotional, the up-downs, you structure it all out like we've worked on in the structure. We're going to tighten up these punchlines in future days, but I just wanted to give you that high-level overview of what a purpose-driven story looks like and how you might start to think about your own.